I used to believe that if I worked hard, stayed quiet, and put everyone else first, one day they'd see me. That love would come, respect would follow, and maybe, just maybe, I'd be enough. But the truth is, some families don't want to see you unless you're serving their story. And the day I finally said no, everything changed. Let me tell you what happened. My name is Ivy Caldwell. I'm 26 years old, and I live just outside Lexington, Kentucky, in a modest town where nothing ever seems to change, except me. People love to say things like, you need to be practical, as if dreams are only meant for lucky people. But for me, it wasn't just a dream. It was survival. Passion was the only thing that made me feel alive in a family that never saw my worth. Ever since I was a kid, barely tall enough to see over the old recliner, I'd watch my cousin get lost in the world of games, mesmerized by the colors, the stories, the power of creation. But what struck me even more was the computer itself. Not just for play, but as a portal to opportunity. By the time I hit 20, I knew no one was going to build anything for me. Especially not in my house, where my needs were always negotiable. So I carved a path myself. For 3 years, I balanced community college with every side hustle I could grab. Early mornings shelving books at the campus library. Late nights freelancing logo designs and photo retouches on a hand-me-down laptop that sounded like it might explode every time I opened Photoshop. Every birthday, while other girls my age hoped for perfume or weekend trips, I asked for prepaid Visa cards and PayPal credits. Every cent was guarded. My dream? A custom-built PC. Not flashy, not luxurious, but powerful. I needed it to grow. The final cost was $2,800. I scraped for every part, sifting through discount forums, hunting seasonal deals, assembling it screw by screw like it was a sacred ritual. I'll never forget the sound of it powering on for the first time. The quiet hum of the fans was like my own heartbeat whispering, you did this. And from that moment, everything changed. My freelance work took off. Clients returned. Some referred me. I wasn't making a fortune, but I was standing on my own 2 feet, and more importantly, I wasn't relying on anyone else to validate me. But that didn't matter to my parents. Because I was still invisible next to Brielle, my younger sister. She's 3 years younger, but the way they doted on her, you'd think she was royalty. If she wanted something, it happened. When I needed support for a professional course, my mom said, Brielle's tuition for art school comes first. When the next year came around, it was, your sister's internship in LA is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. We'll get to your stuff next time. But next time never came. My goals were always postponed like they were optional, while hers were treated like national emergencies. I don't hate Brielle. I hate the way our family turned favoritism into law, where my sacrifices were expected and her whims were rewarded, where I was asked to shrink myself so she could shine brighter. And in all of that, the only thing that made me feel real was that PC. Not because it was expensive, but because it was mine. Dad always used to tell me, you're the big sister, Ivy. You should know how to step aside. Step aside. Such a polished way of saying sacrifice yourself. In our house, it wasn't a lesson in humility, it was a demand to disappear. So long as Brielle got what she wanted, everyone else was expected to fall in line. I still remember my 21st birthday, not because it was special, but because it wasn't. I had asked for just one thing, dinner at that old diner near downtown, the one with the red booths and jukebox I loved as a teen. Nothing fancy, just burgers, shakes, and a little laughter. But Brielle had double-booked herself for a brunch with friends, and suddenly my plans were inconvenient. Mom shrugged it off. We can do something next weekend, honey. It wouldn't be the same without your sister anyway. So I bought a slice of cake from the grocery store and watched reruns alone that night. It wasn't the first time, and I knew it wouldn't be the last. Still, somewhere deep inside, I kept hoping. Hoping that one day, they'd see me not as the support beam for Brielle's spotlight, but as someone worth celebrating too. A few months ago, Brielle landed an internship with a startup in Chicago. Our parents lit up like she'd won an Olympic medal. They drained their rainy day fund to rent her a trendy loft near Lincoln Park, complete with custom curtains, an espresso machine she didn't know how to use, and a new mattress that cost more than my entire bedroom setup. I didn't say a word. But every time I typed on my old desk, its left leg wobbling beneath me, the message was clear, her comfort was essential. Mine was optional. One evening, I was finishing a logo revision for a local catering company, something that actually helped cover our utilities, when Mom knocked. She wore that carefully pleasant expression I knew too well. Ivy's sweetheart. Brielle mentioned she's having trouble rendering her video edits. Her computer's not keeping up. Could she borrow your PC for a while? I froze mid-click. You mean my computer? The one I built from scratch after 3 years of saving. Well, she said, stepping into the room, you've still got your old laptop. You're not doing anything too heavy lately, are you? I felt my chest tighten. Mom, that PC isn't a toy. It's how I make my living. The laptop can't handle half the software I run daily. She sighed like I was being dramatic. Brielle has big things ahead of her, Ivy. Real opportunities. Sometimes you have to be the bigger person for the sake of the family. That word again, family. Always tossed around when they needed something from me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Later that night, I sat in the glow of my monitor, trailing my fingers along the machine's edge like it might disappear if I blinked. Because in this house, nothing I owned was ever truly safe. And Brielle didn't even need to ask. All she had to do was mention a problem and the solution came at my expense. That was the moment I stopped feeling like a daughter. And started feeling like inventory. I had a bad feeling that whole week. Mom's quiet glances, Dad's clipped tones, the way no one looked me in the eye for more than a second. But I pushed it aside. I told myself I was just tired from back-to-back projects. That Saturday afternoon felt unremarkable at first. I had just wrapped up a poster design for a catering company's launch. It was a rush job, but I got it done ahead of deadline and I finally had a free evening. My plan was simple: boot up my PC, hop on a voice chat with a few online friends and unwind. But the moment I stepped into my room, everything inside me dropped. My desk was empty. Gone. The monitor. The tower. My mechanical keyboard. Even the ergonomic chair I had saved 6 months to buy vanished. I stood there in disbelief, my breath catching. Robbery? But the windows were locked. My camera, bookshelf, and even my backup tablet were untouched. The gut punch hit me. No. Not a thief. My parents. I bolted down the stairs, my pulse roaring in my ears. They were at the kitchen table. Calm. Serene. Like nothing had happened. Dad was flipping through a discount homeware catalog and Mom was sipping from her floral mug like it was just another weekend. Where's my computer? I asked, my voice shaking. Mom barely looked up. Oh, we sold it, she said, like she was talking about an old lamp from the attic. I blinked. Sold what? The desktop, Dad added, setting his catalog aside. Brielle needed funding for her final project showcase. It was urgent. We talked about it as a family. No, I said slowly. You talked about it. Without me. Mom shrugged. It was just sitting there for games and little art things. Meanwhile, your sister's trying to get into a real industry. We had to make a decision. I stared at them in disbelief. That wasn't a toy. That machine paid our electric bill last month. It's my livelihood. You're being dramatic, Mom replied coolly. You still have your laptop. You'll adjust. Just then, Brielle strutted in, holding up a sequin gown for her upcoming gala. She barely looked at me. Oh, Ivy, thanks for the help, she said, her grin smug. Mom said your rig sold for more than we thought. Nice little boost for me. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Because in that moment, something in me snapped, and it wasn't just about the computer. It was about finally seeing the truth. To them, I was just a resource. And Brielle was the only future worth investing in. What a lucky break, huh? Brielle chirped, still admiring her reflection as she twirled in front of the hallway mirror. I stared at her. Lucky? You're standing on everything I worked for, and you dare to call it lucky. She shrugged without looking at me. Come on, Ivy. Just a computer. You're talented, you'll figure it out. I can't afford to miss this opportunity just because you're being sentimental. Opportunity? I nearly laughed. So I'm supposed to throw away 3 years of work, 3 years of ramen dinners and double shifts, just so you can parade around in sequins and call it art? That's when Mom's voice cut in, sharp and irritated. That's enough, Ivy. Stop being selfish. You're the older sister. You should be supporting her, not throwing tantrums. My chest tightened but my voice stayed even. Supporting her doesn't mean sacrificing myself every time she makes a wish. Brielle's success is the family's pride, Mom added. Why can't you understand something so simple? I glanced between the three of them. Mom's dismissiveness, Dad's stony silence, Brielle's self-satisfied smirk, and something inside me shifted. In that moment it was painfully clear. I wasn't a daughter. I was a resource. A backup fund. An inconvenience when I dared to say no. Brielle turned her back to me, humming as she rattled off makeup brands to Mom. Like our argument had never happened. Dad went back to his paper. No one apologized. No one blinked. As if I'd simply be expected to get over it again. But this time I didn't. That night I couldn't sleep. My body lay still but my mind burned. Not just with anger but with clarity. They wouldn't stop unless I made them. They'd keep dressing it up as family. But what they meant was control. Around 2 a.m., I powered up my old laptop. The screen flickered like it didn't want to help me, but I kept going. I dug through folders I hadn't opened in months. Bank records, screenshots, scanned receipts for every part one purchased. From the RAM to the cooling fans, I had proof of ownership. By dawn, I had it all printed and stacked in a folder. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about making them see me. The next morning, as they sat at the table, Dad flipping through his paper, Mom tapping at her phone, Brielle curling her hair, I stood in the doorway and said firmly, "I want to talk." The room fell still. For once they listened. Dad was the first to react. His newspaper dropped slightly, just enough to show his narrowed eyes. "You're still going on about that computer," he said, his voice laced with irritation. "How long are you planning to drag this out, Ivy?" I didn't flinch. I walked over and placed the neatly organized folder on the table in front of them. Calm. Direct. "This isn't about dragging anything out," I said. "This is about fairness and legality." Mom's phone slipped lower in her hands, her expression tightening. "Ivy, are you seriously turning this into some legal drama? You're family. Families don't squabble like this. Don't they?" I replied with a bitter chuckle. "You sold my personal property without asking, like it was a garage sale blender. Just because Brielle needed to show off at some school event. No warning. No conversation. So who's really acting like an outsider here?" Dad straightened in his seat. "You live in this house. That machine was in this house. Everything under this roof is shared. That's how families work." I met his gaze squarely. "Wrong. These," I said, flipping the folder open, "are invoices for every single component I purchased with my own money. This," I tapped a stack of neatly printed PayPal and Venmo receipts, "is my freelance income, earned by working hours you never even noticed." And then I slid the last page forward. "This is a screenshot of the transaction where you sold my custom-built PC to a man named Elliot Summers. $1,200. Cash. Without my consent." Brielle, lounging on the edge of the kitchen counter with her phone still in hand, gave a dramatic sigh. "God, Ivy, you're seriously making a scene over some pocket change. You'll make another one. You always do. Stop being so petty." I turned to her and smiled coolly. "It's not about money. It's about respect. Something you've never had to earn a day in your life because you've lived off everyone else's effort." Then called it talent. Dad slammed his palm on the table hard enough to rattle the sugar bowl. "Enough. What do you want?" I didn't blink. "It's simple. I want $1,200 returned to me by Friday. If not, I'll file a claim for misappropriation of private property. I have everything I need to take this to court." Mom's face lost its color. She looked at Dad like she was silently begging him to fix it. "Ivy," she said, her voice breaking slightly, "you'd really do that? To your own family?" I gave a half-smile that held no warmth. "You've already done it to me." Brielle crossed her arms and scoffed. "You're tearing this family apart." "No," I said calmly. "This family's been broken. I'm just done pretending it isn't." For the first time, no one spoke. Finally, Dad muttered through clenched teeth. "Fine. You'll get your money. But don't expect anything more from this family ever again." I stared at him. "That's fine," I said. "I never did." And with that, I gathered the documents and walked out of the room. A little shaky, yes, but lighter than I'd felt in years. This was only step one. But it was mine. And it was real. For the first time in years, I had stood up and spoken clearly. Not with desperation, not with anger, but with certainty. I had reclaimed my voice. And for a brief moment I thought that would be the end of it. But I had underestimated my parents' pride. Their silence didn't mean acceptance. It meant resistance. For the next week, the tension in the house was like walking through molasses. Every movement was heavy, every glance sharp-edged. Dad didn't say a word, but he watched me like I'd committed treason. Mom made a show of sorrow. "You've really disappointed us, Ivy," she'd murmur on her way past me, sighing like she carried the weight of the world. This house used to be peaceful. As for Brielle, she couldn't care less. Her Instagram flooded with photos from her fittings, her captions reading, "So grateful for my amazing support system, Blackheart." I laughed to myself bitterly. Apparently I was the foundation, but Brielle got the credit. All the energy I had spent, the years of saving, the freelance hustle, the discipline, it had been repurposed into her narrative of effortless brilliance. I wasn't waiting for anyone to say sorry. I wasn't even waiting for justice. I just wanted back what was mine. That Friday afternoon, I came home to find Mom waiting near the kitchen. She held a thick envelope in her hand, expression unreadable. Dad sat nearby, unmoving, eyes fixed on nothing. "This is it," Mom said flatly, holding the envelope out. "Exactly $1,200. Like you wanted." I didn't reach for it immediately. I looked at the envelope the way someone might look at a headstone, final, silent, cold. This wasn't a victory. It was payment for betrayal. "Thank you," I said, calm and quiet. Dad finally spoke. "Just remember, Ivy, everything in this house belongs to us. If you want something for yourself, you'll have to build it somewhere else." I nodded. "That's the plan, Dad." With the envelope in hand, I turned and walked away. Their stares followed, but I didn't flinch. Maybe now they realized I wasn't the Ivy they could guilt into submission anymore. That evening I made the call. Elliot, the man who bought my PC, picked up on the second ring. "I've kept it exactly as it was," he said, almost apologetically. "Honestly, I figured something wasn't right when I got it that cheap." "You want it back." "For exactly what you paid," I said. "Done," he agreed. "I don't want to profit off someone else's loss." We met at a quiet cafe near the university. When he slid the box across the table to me, I felt a small tremor in my chest. The cold aluminum, the neatly packed cables. It wasn't just a machine. It was everything I had built when no one believed in me. On the ride home, I couldn't stop smiling. This PC wasn't about gaming or gigs anymore. It was my answer. To them. To every time I was told to give in. And this time I didn't. I wasn't born to be Brielle's disposable backup. And when I walked through the front door carrying my PC in its original box, both of my parents saw it, but neither said a word. Not surprise. Not guilt. Just silence. Brielle passed me in the hallway, her gaze cool and sharp. "You really know how to make a scene," she muttered under her breath. I didn't bother replying. I just smiled tight, cold, and kept walking. That night, after dinner passed in silence and the usual passive-aggressive sighs from Mom had died down, I sat at my desk and powered on the machine. The soft hum of the cooling fans felt like a pulse coming back to life. As my design apps loaded across the dual monitors one by one, I felt something click inside me. Not relief. Not happiness. Resolve. Because I knew it then, this wasn't the end of the story. My family wouldn't suddenly become fair or kind just because they returned what never belonged to them in the first place. Getting my PC back should have felt like the victory I longed for. But the truth was, the air in that house still felt like a cage. Mom's eyes followed me with a wounded gaze. Dad's silence weighed on me like judgment. Brielle didn't speak to me at all, just walked past like I was furniture. Every breath I took felt measured, evaluated, quietly punished. That's when I realized it was never just about the PC. It was about my space to live. That night I opened my aging laptop, the screen still dim and cracked at the corner. I typed, "Studio apartments for rent in Lexington." I wasn't sitting on a mountain of savings. I didn't have backup plans or family to fall back on. But I had my skills. I had my work. And most importantly, I had my self-respect. I spent 3 hours combing through listings, heart pounding, palms sweaty. But then I saw it. A small studio on Jefferson Street, about 300 square feet. Clean white walls, a skylight, scuffed hardwood floors, but cozy. And best of all, affordable enough with my freelance income. I called the number immediately. A kind voice answered. "This is Doris. It's a small space, dear. No balcony, no dishwasher. Just a good lock and quiet neighbors." "I don't need a balcony, ma'am," I said softly. "I just need somewhere to start again." She paused, then said, "Come by tomorrow morning. We'll see if it fits you." As soon as I hung up, I reopened my client list. I sent out cold emails. I updated my profiles. I opened every freelance group I belonged to and posted availability. I wasn't waiting for miracles, I was building my own escape. I even dusted off my streaming schedule. The channel that once brought me joy, maybe now it could help bring freedom too. The next few days I packed quietly, a box at a time. Old clothes, my drawing tablet, my favorite mugs. I told Mom I was cleaning my closet. Each night when they were asleep, I loaded up my friend Emily's car and dropped off the boxes at her place. "You really going through with it?" she asked, watching me lift another box into her trunk. I nodded. I'd rather struggle in my own space than live comfortably under someone else's thumb. Emily didn't argue. She just handed me a bottle of water and said, "Let's get it done." "I know," I told Emily quietly, lifting another box onto her couch. "But I'd rather be exhausted from living authentically than rested in a prison built on guilt." She didn't try to talk me out of it. Instead, she made room beside her coffee table and handed me a folded blanket. No pity, no questions, just support. In the daytime, I immersed myself in client work, tightening deadlines and polishing designs with more care than ever. At night, I returned to streaming. My viewership wasn't large, sometimes just a dozen people in chat, but it felt like they saw me even through a screen. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I was walking on purpose. Back home, nothing changed. At least not on the surface. Mom began to notice items vanishing from my room. Books missing from shelves, boxes gone from the closet, but she said nothing. Dad kept up his morning ritual. Black coffee, silence, newspaper. He never acknowledged the shrinking signs of me in the house. And Brielle? She glanced at me with amused detachment whenever we passed in the hallway, like she couldn't decide whether I was being dramatic or dangerous. But I didn't flinch. My silence wasn't submission anymore. It was a boundary. That Saturday, I signed the lease with Doris. As she dropped the brass keys into my hand, I felt an invisible chain snap loose, quiet but final. The apartment was small, yes. The walls were thin, and the kitchen barely fit a table. But it was mine, and no one could take it from me. The night before I left, I scribbled a short note on lined paper and left it on the dining table. "Thank you for teaching me what self-worth really looks like. I won't be a burden to this household any longer." I didn't expect goodbyes. I didn't receive any. When I slipped out that morning with the last of my things, no one followed me to the door. No questions. No guilt. Just emptiness. Which strangely felt like freedom. But I was wrong to think it ended there. People like my mother, and especially Brielle, don't take loss of control quietly. They didn't scream. They didn't beg. Instead, the retaliation came in pings and alerts. Failed logins on my freelance accounts. Password reset attempts. First, I assumed it was a hacker. But when I traced one IP back to our old subdivision, my stomach sank. They couldn't stand the fact that I walked away. To them, my absence was an embarrassment they hadn't approved. Their silent sabotage was a power play, an invitation for me to come crawling back. But I wouldn't. I doubled down. I took on more clients. My stream channel grew slowly but surely. I even received an offer from a boutique firm in Portland for ongoing design work. They didn't care whose daughter I was, only what I could deliver. Then one afternoon at the supermarket, I heard someone call my name. "Ivy, is that you?" It was Mrs. Landry, one of Mom's former co-workers. She approached with a warm smile. "I heard you moved out," she said. "Your mother's been talking about it nonstop at work." I returned her smile, polite and calm. "Yeah, I finally decided it was time." But Mrs. Landry wasn't the type to stop at pleasantries. "You know," she said, leaning closer as if sharing a secret, "your folks have been under a lot of stress lately, especially with all the money that's gone into Brielle's event. I heard they even put the suburban plot up as collateral." I froze. That land, 3 acres just past Richmond Road, had always been Dad's fallback plan. The one asset he swore would secure their retirement. It was modest, but it was something. Something permanent. Apparently not anymore. "They didn't tell you?" she asked gently. "I only mention it so you're not caught off guard. Your mom's been bragging for years that Brielle's destined for stardom. But well, you know how expensive it is to make someone shine." She gave a wistful smile, then added, "In the end, it's always the family that pays." Her words echoed in my ears the whole ride home. I didn't feel triumphant. Just hollow. They had gambled their future, and mine, on Brielle's vanity and couldn't even admit they were wrong. That night, as I sorted through project files, a message popped up from Brielle. Not her usual passive-aggressive tone. Just a screenshot of a maxed-out credit card and a simple message beneath it. Can you help out? It's a family thing. I stared at the screen. A mix of disbelief and dark amusement twisted in my gut. A family thing? I wasn't a person anymore. I was a walking emergency fund in their eyes. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the image straight to our old family group chat, accompanied by a single sentence. This is what happens when pride outweighs reason. Don't expect me to fund decisions I was never part of. No lectures. No drama. Just truth. The silence that followed was louder than anything I'd ever heard from them. No guilt trips. No rage. Nothing. Not until 3 days later. My phone lit up. Dad's name. I watched the screen until it went dark again. A minute later, 3 missed calls. Then the text started. What kind of childish game is this? Family is a place you return to, not something you spit on. If you have any decency left, you'll come back and fix what you broke. I sat still, watching each one appear, not moving a muscle. And then, like clockwork, Brielle chimed in. You really think you're special now? You'll come running back when the world knocks you down. You just don't see it yet. I read it all. And I smiled. Because this time I wasn't crushed. I was done playing their game. You think you're so important now, don't you? The world doesn't bend for people like you, Ivy. You'll come crawling back. Sooner than you think. Brielle's last message blinked on my phone screen, bold and smug. She still didn't get it. None of them did. It's not that I never knew how to back down. I'd spent most of my life doing exactly that. But this time I chose not to. I stared at the screen for a while, feeling the weight of everything they had said, everything they hadn't. And then I did what I should have done years ago. One message. To the old family group chat. Type slow, send fast. I'm not coming back. I spent years begging to be respected just to be ignored, used, and silenced. Love isn't sacrifice for one person. If you're still chasing the image of a good daughter, that Ivy no longer exists, don't contact me again. This is my final request. I hit send and waited. A few minutes passed. Then the screen lit up again. Mom, you're tearing this family apart. One day when life knocks you down, you'll remember. Only family takes you back. But don't expect this house to open its doors when that day comes. I read every word, and for once it didn't sting. Because I had heard this song before, the guilt trip melody, the veiled threats, the conditional love. Only this time I didn't feel sadness. I felt relief. A strange, unfamiliar lightness spread through me. My hand didn't shake. My chest didn't tighten. Instead, I opened my contacts list. Mom. Dad. Brielle. One by one I blocked them. Not out of anger but peace. Each tap felt like unfastening a chain I'd worn since I was a child. I sat quietly in my small apartment afterward, golden light streaming through the window, the soft hum of my fan blending with birdsong outside. No chaos. No yelling. Just stillness. The kind of stillness that meant I was free. That evening I powered up my PC for a scheduled stream. But before diving into my usual design segment, I paused. I looked into the webcam and simply said, Today I made a choice I should have made long ago. I ended a cycle of control disguised as family. No dramatics. No rants. And what happened next surprised me. The chat filled with messages, support, empathy, similar stories from viewers who had cut ties with parents, siblings, or partners for their own sanity. Ivy, thank you for saying this. I needed to hear this today. That moment wasn't about attention. It was about connection. Real connection. Built on understanding, not blood. When the stream ended, I leaned back in my chair. Outside, the world continued. My parents and Brielle would carry on their routine of denial and blame. But I had turned the page. And this time, I wasn't writing my story for them. I was writing it for me. I didn't need to prove anything to people who had already made up their minds about me. I no longer sought validation from those who refused to see my worth. And even though the road ahead was uncertain, it was finally mine to walk. I can't pinpoint the moment I truly let go of the hope that my parents or Brielle would ever change. It wasn't dramatic. No blowout fight. No final insult. Just a gradual dimming of expectation. It happened slowly, quietly. One day I looked at my phone, saw no messages, and instead of feeling that familiar pang in my chest, I felt nothing. And that's when I realized I had finally stepped out of their shadow. From that point forward, I began living life on my own terms. Not a brand new life, just the one I had always dreamed of, now unchained from the need to be approved. My freelance work started to gain real traction. A few of my early clients came back, this time with referrals. Word began to spread in local circles. A boutique creative agency based in Nashville even reached out to offer a long-term contract for branding their upcoming product line. The income wasn't predictable yet, but every deposit that came into my account felt deeply earned and deeply mine. At the same time, something unexpected happened with my stream. It wasn't massive growth, no viral moment, but a small, tight-knit indie gaming community began following my content. I didn't perform or exaggerate. I talked about design, my favorite storylines, even the days I felt too tired to try. And that's what pulled people in. One night, I received a private message. "Ivy, your stream makes me feel like I'm not the only one struggling. Thanks for being honest about the hard stuff." That one message meant more to me than all the forced "we're proud of you" lines my family had thrown my way in the past. Somehow, the less I sought approval, the more I found genuine respect from strangers. I poured myself into projects and streamed 2 to 3 nights a week. Slowly, my little studio apartment began to reflect my spirit. Not flashy, not curated, but real, with every detail touched by effort and purpose. And in those quiet nights, I sometimes found myself reflecting. I used to believe happiness would arrive the day my family finally recognized me. But now I understood, peace comes from letting go of the wrong hope. It had taken me 26 years to figure out I wasn't alone. I just misunderstood what being family really meant. A month after moving out, I got an email. It was from Mia Reynolds, a well-known content creator and streamer. She'd seen my channel and invited me to speak at a virtual workshop for young women in gaming and digital art. "I don't want you to talk about family drama," she wrote. "I want you to share how you rebuilt from zero. That's the story." At first I hesitated. But then I realized this wasn't a sad story anymore. This was a beginning. And it was mine. At the virtual workshop, I sat in front of a modest camera setup, my laptop balanced on a stack of books. There was no spotlight, no dramatic stage. Just dozens of bright, curious faces watching through the screen, most younger than me, all hopeful. I told them about my first PC. How long I saved. How I'd skip dinners out, birthday gifts, even winter coats to afford one part at a time. And how building that machine wasn't just about power or speed, it was about building a future no one else believed in. I didn't frame myself as a victim. I didn't point fingers. I just told the truth, that we each have the right to draw our own line in the sand. And the moment I realized that my worth didn't need to be measured by those who consistently ignored it, that was when everything changed. When I finished, there was a pause. Then clapping, not loud or wild, but full of something real. Respect. Recognition. Connection. Mia appeared on screen with a soft smile. "I remember that moment," she said. "When you typed, 'I'm not coming back.' It was like you were exhaling after years underwater." I smiled back. And now, I replied, "I finally know what it feels like to breathe freely." It was true. My parents, Brielle, they weren't my center anymore. Each morning I woke up, I knew who I was working for, myself. Not to prove anything. Not to win love. Just to live honestly. That fall, the phone calls dwindled. I stopped counting them. I stopped imagining that one day mom might apologize or that dad might finally say, "I see you." Brielle kept curating her perfect online world. Glamorous outfits, boutique hotel shots, captions dripping with borrowed confidence. I knew most of it sat on unpaid balances. But this time I didn't care. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I had a safe place to sleep, a job that paid the bills, and a small audience that appreciated what I made. Sometimes I even caught myself smiling while watering the little herb pots on my windowsill. Something I never had time or permission to enjoy before. One quiet afternoon, while cleaning up old folders, I opened the very first message I ever sent to a freelance client. The words were timid, overly formal, filled with apologies. I laughed softly. That version of me never would have pictured this life. And I realized, my family didn't discard me, they simply never knew how to hold me with care. But for years I had handed them my value and waited for them to protect it. Walking away wasn't rebellion. It was recovery. It wasn't defiance. It was simply the first real step toward protecting myself. Not out of anger. Not to punish anyone. Just a quiet decision. I deserved peace. That afternoon, sunlight filtered through my window, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor of my studio apartment. I didn't plan a speech. No notes, no filters, just me and the camera. I hit go live. No announcements. No fanfare. I told the story of the first time I said no. The fear, the guilt, the unexpected strength that came with it. I talked about how I stopped bending to please people who never truly saw me. How I learned to respect my own limits. No fireworks. No applause. But the comments rolled in. You gave words to something I've never said out loud. This made me feel less alone. Freedom doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, it just means it doesn't own you anymore. I smiled. Not because I was proud of having struggled, but because something beautiful had come from it. What I gained wasn't applause or victory. It was a life that finally felt like mine. Quiet. Purposeful. Honest. Ivy's story wasn't a tragedy. It was a quiet revolution, someone stepping away from inherited guilt and toward her own worth. There are so many like me. People still living in that quiet cage of expectation, still being told that love means sacrifice. But it doesn't. Freedom isn't rebellion. It's the courage to walk away from what no longer serves you and choose yourself. What do you think of Ivy's choice? Was walking away selfish, or was it the first act of self-respect? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more real stories about identity, boundaries, and choosing your own path.